Let's go Dolphins! Something big is happening in Miami. Behind the scenes, important conversations are taking place, contracts are on the line, and the future of your Miami Dolphins hangs by a thread. We're talking about decisions that could change the course of the franchise, that could catapult the team to a Super Bowl run or lead us to yet another rebuild. What I just discovered changes everything you thought you knew about this roster. Trust me, you won't want to miss a second of what I'm about to reveal. The pressure is immense. The front office is cornered, and time is running out. But before diving into the controversy, the drama, and the crucial choices hanging over Hard Rock Stadium, don't forget to like this post. But only if you follow the Dolphins through the glory days and the disappointments. If you're a die-hard Dolphins fan, show it right now in the comments with, "Go Dolphins!" My heart bleeds blue and orange. Now get ready, because what I'm about to tell you could trigger the biggest change we've seen in Miami in recent years. The first major storyline centers around the Dolphins' run game, a topic that fans are both excited and skeptical about. Let's be real, the ground attack took a major leap in the latter half of the season. It all started back in Week 8 against Atlanta, when Miami shifted into gear and went on a stretch of 5 wins in 6 games. What changed? The rushing game dominated. They steamrolled defenses like Buffalo, Washington, New Orleans, and of course, Atlanta. Devin Achane was a key weapon, and unless something unexpected happens like a trade, there's every reason to believe this rushing attack will be one of the team's greatest strengths again next season. Even though Mike Mcdaniel is no longer the mastermind behind those play designs, there's optimism surrounding new OC Bobby Slowick. There's no clear answer on whether the Dolphins will be top 10 in rushing, but expectations are for them to be, at minimum, league average. And with a talent like Achane, who is viewed as a top 5 back in the NFL, that's a very realistic floor. Supporting him up front, you've got Austin Jackson potentially returning, Aaron Brewer and Patrick Paul locked in, and rumors swirling about James Daniels possibly joining the fold at right guard. The big question is Jonah Williams. Will he finally elevate his game? And what's the long-term plan for Austin Jackson at right tackle? These are key areas that could dictate just how explosive this run game becomes under Slowick's guidance. Now, speaking of explosive situations, let's talk Tua Tagovailoa. It's the hottest, most divisive storyline in Miami right now. And it's not just about his on-field performance, it's about his future with the franchise. Should the Dolphins keep him, cut him, or trade him? Depending on who you ask, you'll get wildly different answers. But let's get one thing clear. If Miami trades Tua, it's not going to bring back a haul of draft picks. In fact, it's the opposite. The realistic scenarios point to either attaching a draft pick just to offload his contract or eating the majority of his salary and only getting a late-round pick, maybe a 6th or 7th, in return. Not exactly a blockbuster deal, and that reality is forcing Miami's front office to weigh some very tough options. Some fans are dreaming of a trade package involving Dak Prescott. A suggestion was floated, Tua plus a first-round pick in exchange for Dak. In a vacuum? Sure, Dak is a better quarterback, top 10 in the league, but the devil is in the details. Both quarterbacks are carrying monster contracts north of $55 million, and Dak's arrival wouldn't come with the kind of flexibility Miami desperately needs. Without that first-round pick, how does the team add young, blue-chip talent to the roster on rookie deals? Unless you absolutely strike gold in the 2nd or 3rd round, it's a dangerous game to play. Realistically, Dallas wouldn't pull the trigger on that trade anyway, and for Miami, it might not be the smartest move either. Resetting the cap and moving on from Tua cleanly may be the better play. So then the question becomes, if Miami moves on from Tua, what's next? Some fans are floating names like Anthony Richardson, even suggesting a trade to bring him in. But here's the problem, keeping Tua on the roster as competition would be a disaster. The moment Richardson or any other young QB hits a rough patch, the media and fans will instantly call for Tua to be reinserted as the starter. It creates noise, distractions, and pressure that no rebuilding quarterback room should have to endure. That's why many believe the best path forward is to cut bait cleanly, no distractions, no divided locker room, just a fresh start. And let's not ignore the quarterback draft market. The Dolphins may not be in position for a top pick, but there are several mid-round options worth monitoring. Drew Aller out of Penn State has that rocket arm and fits a Green Bay-style mold, something the Dolphins are gravitating toward, considering they've adopted personnel and coaching pieces from that system. Garrett Nussmeier is another intriguing name. Projected as a first-rounder before an injury-riddled season, he bounced back and won Senior Bowl MVP. Mental leadership, physical tools, and redemption narrative, he checks all the boxes. Talon Green is drawing Anthony Richardson comparisons, but you could get him in the 5th or 6th round. Even North Dakota State's Cole Payton, a dual-threat lefty, is generating buzz from his standout practices at the Senior Bowl. There are options on the table if Miami decides to reload instead of retool. Now, on the defensive side, things are just as intriguing. Free agency is looming, and names like Rick Woolen have sparked serious fan interest. Pairing him with Rasul Douglas would solve Miami's cornerback depth issue overnight. But here's the catch, Woolen's value has skyrocketed. Once a rumored trade target last year, he's now projected to command upwards of $14 million per year. And unless he plays quarterback, it's hard to imagine the Dolphins dropping that kind of cash on a free agent. That could change depending on what the team does with veterans like Tyreek Hill and, again, Tua, but as it stands now, the odds aren't great. Still, there are more realistic targets. Kader Kohou and Rasul Douglas returning seems very much on the table, and the team could use the draft to round out the secondary with names like Jason Marshall Jr. or Juju Brents. There's also been some buzz around Greg Dulcich. Bring him back and fortify that tight end room. Oh, and don't sleep on Elijah Vera Tucker. Yes, he's coming off a brutal knee injury, but before that he was arguably the Jets' best offensive lineman. A one-year prove-it deal might be exactly the kind of low-risk, high-reward signing that Miami needs. If the Dolphins do decide to move on from Tua Tagovailoa, then the ripple effects across the entire organization will be felt immediately. We're not just talking about swapping out a quarterback. This would be a complete identity shift for the franchise. And let's be honest, the fan base is split. One side believes Tua still has untapped potential, that with the right protection and offensive scheme, he can lead Miami deep into the playoffs. The other side? They're done. They've seen enough, and they're ready to embrace a rebuild, or at least a reset, with a younger, more dynamic signal caller. Now here's the reality. Any plan to move off Tua has to be precise and calculated. This is not the type of quarterback situation you want to mishandle. Because if Miami fumbles this, they could end up stuck in a QB purgatory that lasts years. But let's say the front office gets aggressive, clears the cap space, and either drafts a young quarterback or signs a low-cost veteran as a stopgap. This creates an opportunity to build a deeper, stronger roster around that next QB. Think Green Bay. Think Baltimore. That's how sustainable contenders are built. And you can't ignore the financial upside. Freeing up $55 million from Tua's contract opens doors, not just one, but multiple. It gives Miami the flexibility to re-sign core players, chase a legit offensive lineman or corner in free agency, or even stash cap space for future extensions. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland, Jalen Ramsey, you want to keep that core together? Then every dollar matters. One of the most important questions becomes, what quarterback is even available that fits the vision of what Bobby Slowick and Mike McDaniel want to do? If you're pivoting from a rhythm and timing passer like Tua, you better be sure your next guy can command the field and execute an offense that still relies heavily on precision and timing, while also bringing an added layer of mobility and improvisation. Enter the draft names we mentioned earlier. But here's the key. The Dolphins will need to hit. No ifs, ands, or maybes. If they use a second or third rounder on someone like Garrett Nussmeier or Talon Green, it has to work. There's no room for error when you don't have a top 10 pick to fall back on. And don't forget, this front office doesn't have the cleanest track record when it comes to quarterback evaluations. That's why this offseason will be so pivotal. The next move could define the franchise for the next 5 years. Let's talk more about the offensive line, because this unit could quietly make or break the entire season. There are still question marks surrounding Austin Jackson's role at right tackle. If he stays healthy, he's solid, but that's a big if. Then there's the left guard and center situation. Patrick Paul returning gives some consistency, but the team is seriously eyeing James Daniels, which could elevate the entire unit if that deal gets done. The real sleeper move could be targeting someone like Elijah Vera Tucker on a one-year deal. The risk? His injury history. But the reward? A top-tier lineman on a discount. That's exactly the type of signing that wins you games in December and January. Let's also revisit the cornerback discussion. Bringing back both Kader Kohou and Rasul Douglas would give this secondary much-needed depth and experience. And with Jalen Ramsey already locking down one side of the field, a trio of Ramsey, Kohou, and Douglas would be a nightmare for opposing QBs. But the Dolphins can't stop there. They need to draft a young, developmental corner who can learn under these vets and eventually step into a bigger role. Jason Marshall Jr. and Juju Brents are names worth circling on draft day. Now, about the idea of adding Riq Woolen, yes, it's tempting. The man is a physical freak, 6 feet 2